call me whenever you're ready, comrade.
Hello,
Howdy.
hello.
How's it going?
It's going pretty well. I muted your stream so it's not double playing in the background.
I,
But
I appreciate it. So,
oh, I'm sorry.
what?
You're cutting out. I'm so sorry.
Sorry. I appreciate that. How are you doing?
I'm doing all right. It's what 2:30 a.m. where I am. And I
Nice.
can't sleep. So yeah. So I'm here.
Are you in Georgia? Are you in Pennsylvania? One of the swing states?
No, I'm in Michigan, in Detroit.
Nice. How are you feeling about the election results?
Well in terms of Michigan. I'm feeling
Yeah.
like happy. In terms of Biden getting the lead, I'm cautiously very optimistic, in that there is still ways Trump can pull whatever he's going to pull, but the more likely option is that Biden will win the electoral college as well as the popular vote. He's
Eh,
definitely won the popular vote, but
Oh yeah, 100%.
yeah,
He's like 4 or 5 million up right now.
yep, yep.
Um, just a second.
I do have to say, I while I came over from the raid, I
Yeah.
uh was there. I found that raider like 5 minutes before they raided. So I'm here now, happy to have a conversation and talk politics.
Absolutely. So like what are your politics?
I consider myself a Marxist-Leninist.
Okay.
I feel I'm fairly down to earth though. I try not to be an asshole,
Okay. Like what?
even though.
Oh, sorry.
No, I was gonna say even though a lot of MLs are.
Yeah, like so why specifically ML as opposed to like a socialist or like a Marxist in general?
Well, I was radicalized through theory.
Hmm.
So I've read a lot of. I'm that boring guy.
Okay.
I've read a lot of Luxemburg, a lot of Lenin, a lot of obviously Marx, and I always say I'm convinced by the arguments Lenin makes, in terms of leadership, which is the key factor in his philosophy on the difference between Marxists and anarchists.
Okay. How do you feel about like Stalinists and Maoists?
Do not do not like
Okay.
Stalin. Do not like Stalin. I haven't read, which is embarrassing. I haven't read nearly enough Trotsky to say I'm a Trotskyist,
Hmm.
but I much prefer Trotsky over Stalin. I can't get into Mao simply because of the massive amounts of human rights abuses that are obvious and clear.
Hmm.
Um, and yeah, I
Okay.
obviously there's a lot of human rights violations and accusations lobbed at Lenin,
Hmm.
but I would say war is hell and civil war is pretty bad.
Yeah.
Um, that's just my take, and
Yeah, I,
yeah,
I I think that there are definitely arguments that can be made in favor of like Lenin, for example. I find it a little bit more sus when people make arguments in favor of Stalin.
yeah,
Um,
definitely not a tanky.
okay, thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I was kind of trying to feel that out,
Oh,
just to
I
make
totally
sure,
get
you
that.
know.
I totally get that.
I tend to think that tankies have a an unhealthy draw towards authoritarianism, and then they dress it up and justify it with like lefty theory.
Hmm.
And I'm not a fan of that. As I'm just a socialist. I want people to be as free as possible, and authoritarianism
Hmm.
definitely rubs me the wrong way.
Hmm. I can get behind that. Yeah.
Um, plus,
But
I'm oh sorry.
no, go ahead, go ahead. You're the streamer.
But plus, I'm much more interested in like actionable things that we can do to like progress society. So like, for example, I'm very open to different ways that we could go about things, like anarcho-communism, for example. I'm open to those ideas, but like largely I think they're not going to be achievable in like our lifetimes. So I set my goals lower than where I think our possibility horizon as like a species or over time
Hmm.
could be, and say that, well, I at the very least I know what the next step I think we should take is, and that's towards market socialism, at least as a society in the United States.
Quick question: am I hot micing?
Are
Because I
you?
see my hot micing.
I don't think
I see
so.
my I see my like light. Look, all right, never mind.
You're good. You're good.
All right. So I can definitely understand that. I would say any form of communism, anarcho-communism, whatever the means of production being um, stateless and moneyless and so on and so forth, I definitely think that that is way out of reach for a long time.
Hmm.
As opposed to socialist revolution, however that's attained, I
Right.
think that is certainly achievable.
Yeah.
Um, and there's several ways to go about that.
Are
Um,
you like evolutionary or revolutionary?
I would prefer revolution, but
Okay. Interesting.
um, I say that with the caveat of I much prefer a peaceful option,
Hmm.
um, because I've read Revolutionary Reform,
Hmm.
um, and I think I really do think that incremental change, uh, such as social democracy, I think that's good.
Hmm.
I don't I don't think that's nearly good enough.
Okay.
Um, that's just my take.
Okay. Yeah, like I'm largely in the camp where I think that we can achieve, um, especially like market socialism, and I'd be in favor of maybe going beyond market socialism after that. But I think that we could achieve that largely through the like electoral system we have now, um, which is one of the reasons I advocate for it. You know,
Mhm.
I find it to be more attainable rather than like revolutionary action. For example, when it comes to the United States in particular, I am not super optimistic that the revolutionary course will succeed or be beneficial, or at least not in these current conditions that we live
Oh,
in.
sure. Well, what I mean by revolution is a upheaval of society. Whether
Hmm.
that is violent or peaceful, that is yet to be determined. Um, and what I mean by that is a revolutionary mass movement of unions, let's say. If the
Hmm.
working class actually says, yeah, the material conditions of capitalism are not uh, good for me, and they joy and everybody becomes a syndicalist or what have you,
Hmm.
I think that that counts as revolutionary. Um, but like that's a academic sort of
Yeah.
question.
So say you're in charge of like the Democratic Party in the United States. What sort of policy reforms would you take to get us from point A to point B? You know?
Oh, well, I first of all, I have to say I'm much more of a foreign policy sort of interested guy,
Oh, interesting.
um, rather than like specific policies in the United States.
Hmm.
Not that I don't have like ideas and that
Right.
sort of thing, but I would say getting to the level of human rights status of other industrialized countries,
Hmm.
I would definitely want to sign on to a lot of the UN agreements that are sponsored by human rights groups.
Yeah, that we've
Um,
we've largely
yes,
noped our way out of.
I would even go into the oh, what's it called? The Hague. I forget
Oh,
the
like allow U.S. Citizens to be prosecuted at the Hague for war
oh
crimes.
oh yes, yes. But I mean the state as generally, because
Hmm.
there was the case of Nicaragua trying to lobby against the United States government for war crimes and so on and so forth, which is true.
Hmm.
And since the United States isn't party to the court, I forget the court name. I'm so sorry.
The
Um,
international. Oh gosh, yeah. Now I'm
yeah,
forgetting it too.
yeah.
If anyone
Uh,
in chat knows,
I'm so sorry. Yeah.
it's okay. I forget things
Um,
all the time on stream.
yeah, sure. That sounded mean. I'm sorry.
It's all good.
No, like I would, even if that's technically bad for the United States in reputation,
Hmm.
I would still think human rights are better than a status of international political power.
Yeah.
Um, no, but I would try and stop the coups of democratically elected governments around the world. Um, yeah,
How
that'd be my focus.
uh, just as a question, like how far would you be willing to go to stop like coups? Like, would you be willing to like I don't know, say Spain was trying to overthrow like an African country? Would you like go in and like fight Spanish forces? Like,
Well, that would depend really,
mm-hmm,
because I look at the Cuban intervention into Angola
mm-hmm.
as an example of um, well, as an example of international politics and playing and trying to assert dominance in well, not necessarily dominance, but a sort of
Also, I just so people know,
yes.
can you talk a little bit about like the background of the Cuban intervention in
Oh,
Angola? Because I think a lot of I tend to think a lot of Americans aren't super up on Cuba's foreign policy, for example.
sure. In it after obviously the Cuban Revolution, Fidel comes to power. Um, in the I don't know when they first sent troops over to Angola.
Hmm.
Um, I'm looking it up right now. I don't know if it was the 70s, beginning of the 70s, or late 60s, but
Hmm. Yeah, for those of you who don't know, like Cuba does have like armed forces, obviously,
yes,
and they basically do a lot of like relief efforts around the world. Like it's famously said that like one of Cuba's main export is like doctors, for
yes, that
example.
yep.
Um, so
Yeah, I just looked it up. It's 1975 is when they first sent troops. Um, yeah,
cool.
but yeah, the Cuban intervention was a form of solidarity, in my opinion. But it was objectively a course of action to disrupt the United States' dominance and the Western powers' dominance over third world countries, and that is what happened. Um, and there were three like sort of left um parties, and I think there were three, and generally uh, a united sort of right that was backed by the apartheid or the apartheid state of South. Oh my God, South
Africa.
Africa.
Yeah.
Yes. Um, but and that sort of intervention by um, Cuba is really what um, helped the Angolan. I don't know what the specific. Um, I think it was the FNLA, the National Liberation Front of Angola. Was it?
I think so.
I'm looking at Wikipedia right now. So
It's all good.
yeah, no. Yeah, the sort of intervention by the Cuban forces allowed Angola to become a unified country um, after being plunged into civil war. Obviously, it's still got its problems, that's for sure,
Hmm.
but it is a unified country. Um, now,
Yeah, that helps.
yeah, um, and to get back to the point of like stopping coups and things of that nature.
Hmm.
Um, the sort of international solidarity that sort of intervention in civil wars depends on uh, I guess what the circumstances call for, and this is coming from obviously coming from a communist, so
Right.
I obviously want the communists to win, but at the same time, I think self determination is a big thing, and it
Right.
should be respected.
Yeah.
Um,
By the way, this is why, like, one of the big reasons that I'm a market socialist is that I think we can make good arguments that appeal to capitalists that um, move, you know, subtly move in the direction of socialism.
mm,
Like, for example, like, hey, maybe we should decommodify housing, or we maybe
yes.
we don't put it that way, but we say, did you know if we build housing for homeless people, every dollar we put into that, we save our wider system $2. Seems economically convenient, no?
Well, I would actually push back on that
Hmm.
simply because, um, for example, the Medicare for all,
Right.
obviously it's a big upfront cost,
Hmm.
but the statistics show that it will be less costly for the average citizen and the average person in generally in America
Right.
um, to have universal health care,
Hmm.
and the plan proposed by uh, Bernie Sanders and Rokana in the House.
Right.
Um, but since that hasn't been done or even accepted by the Democratic Party, I don't really see the sort of a gentle nudge that seems to be what you're suggesting. I don't want to put words in your
Oh,
mouth.
yeah. I mean, like, on local levels. I think that we
Okay.
can. I tend to think that, for example, on a city level, this is an argument that has a lot more salience than like a wide federal program, because cities, they tend to want to save money. And I think that if you have a program where you're like, hey, this is every dollar you put into this going to save you $2. Um,
See, I can push back against that.
oh, really? Okay.
The example of in Detroit,
Hmm.
where um, well, the city of Detroit forked over tens of billions of dollars to build a stadium, um, Little Caesars Arena,
Hmm.
um, that they paid for that. They uh, worked the fields, and hired the workers and so on and so forth. And obviously, this is owned by Little Caesars.
Hmm.
I don't remember the guy in charge, but um, so the city paid for that when it is obvious that the owner of Little Caesars could have forked over an upfront cost and still gotten returns
Hmm.
and made a profit. But instead, what happened is he lobbied the city council and the politicians there, and they got a bunch of money on the side. That's
Hmm.
my assumption. Um,
Probably.
my yeah, and then the city actually forked over the cash, and I've seen reports or studies that say stadiums don't actually increase the value of cities.
Hmm.
They simply crowd it.
Yeah.
Like the general argument for creating a stadium is that it'll bring in outside uh, consumers,
Yeah, and
and that
investment and all that stuff.
mhm, mhm. And that generally hasn't been the case.
Right.
Obviously, you get anecdotal evidence of people going to bars around the city, but um, the studies I've seen say that that's not uh, generally applicable. It at least to make a profit.
Yeah.
Um, so saying cities want to save money, in certain cities, of course,
Yeah.
I'm sure that's the case. But in large cities like Detroit, like
I
New
think
York,
I
like
I think this is largely though a product of Largely a product of people not making the argument that housing the homeless is cheaper, for example. Like, I think a lot of people don't, because, like, for example, a big stadium has a lot of argumentation behind it to say, hey, this will bring in a lot of outside investment. And I think for a lot of people, that's a very, it's a, it, while the idea might not hold true in reality, it's
Mhm.
one that they intuitively feel might be true, you know? I think the opposite is true of homelessness as a problem, or like decommodifying homes. Um, and so like of all like I have a bunch of data that I've seen, like empirical studies that show like, yeah, when you house homeless people, turns out that that's like a net benefit for the entire community, and the state saves money. um how much money tends to vary based on the study.
Mhm.
Like,
Oh yeah.
I've seen one in like I think it was Sydney, Australia, that saved like literally 2 to 1 for the city.
Hmm.
Or there are others like done in like Silicon
Oh yeah.
Valley and
Yeah.
like Portland and all kinds of other places, and they all seem to be generally extremely positive on this issue. So I think that while you do have a point that a lot of bureaucratic forces and politicians might be resistant to these ideas, I think that given the existing body of research available to us, I think that we can, like, over time, convince people to adopt these policies and create a standard of decommodified housing that might not be decommodified, might not be decommodified
Yeah.
housing for everybody, but we can at least have a stable of decommodified housing for people who can't afford other homes. And most importantly, we can make it so that these decommodified housing units aren't shitty. Because I think that's one of the number one problems when it comes to affordable housing or projects that get built. Overwhelmingly, they tend to be places you don't want to be. Um,
Yeah.
so I think that there are solutions available to this, but I think that these are arguments that we can put forward in the current system we have, and I think, depending on how we present them and who we're presenting them to and the levers of power, yada yada yada, these are ideas that can have salience to get through. And like, I also think like, hey, if we can get it through on a national level too by making the case for it, why not give
Oh
it a shot?
yeah. All this would be wonderful, but I think the powers that be matter.
Right.
Like the sort of variables of who we're presenting and how we're presenting it. I think that is a big factor.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Especially in the sort of argument of yes, the giving people homes will absolutely decrease violence and increase productivity and all that.
Mm-hmm.
I totally agree, and I've seen those. Well, I've seen some studies. I didn't see the Sydney uh, case or whatever, but
Yeah.
um, no. But the argument that homeless people are lazy, mentally ill, drunks, whatever, is extremely pervasive
Right.
and in the minds of a lot of people.
Well, and that
Um,
that that by the way is why, like, essentially why I created my Twitch channel, because I want to advocate for these ideas and try and convince people, and
oh, absolutely. Yeah.
hopefully by convincing people, increase the political pressure and get some shit done. Like, guys in chat, I know, I don't know if you know this, but like, I don't do this for shits and giggles. I do have fun doing it, but I largely do it because I want to attain political goals eventually.
Mhm, mhm.
If we get big enough, who knows?
Yeah, yeah. No, well, thank you for doing that. First of all, like, praxis is always important.
Hell yeah.
Um, but I think the on the ground work is where we're really gonna start doing, uh, like uh, like like organizing it and making tenant unions and
Oh yeah.
actually being on the ground. I think that's a really I don't want to say like a better option because I think what you're doing is great,
Hmm.
but I think it's really important to have these organizations and
I
organize for
well,
people on the ground.
yeah, and I agree because I think we need pressure from all kinds of different directions. If we have tenant unions, it makes it that much easier to achieve, decommodifying housing, for example, because you suddenly can have like organized tenants advocating, or in maybe a worst case scenario for landlords striking. Um, these are all things that can increase our political agency in ways that I think are extremely positive as well. So, like when we're talking about people who are organizing on the ground, that's fantastic.
Yeah, yeah. But I think the disconnect of you and I
Hmm.
um, is that a lot of um, sort of how do I don't even know. I'm losing my train of thought, by the way.
It's all good. It's late.
Yeah, yeah, it is. um, I don't know what. Yeah, I totally lost my train of thought. I'm sorry.
The disconnect between you and
Yes.
I largely don't think that there is that much of a disconnect. By the way, I think you're doing something that's valuable, and I think it's okay if people do things a little bit differently to achieve the
Oh
same
yeah, yeah,
goal.
yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. This is why my girlfriend's an anarchist, which I don't know
Hell
how
yeah.
that happened. Because she was a centrist when I started dating her, and
Really?
she flew off into anarchism. And
How? What what
I
theory did you expose her to?
no, well, I'm in DSA. I got her into going to meetings, all that sort of stuff, and
Hmm.
started doing praxis with me. And I am a philosophical guy. I
Yeah.
like talking about like theory and all that. So I pose like these like theoretical and like mental exercises, and she always leaned on what what would can would be considered anarcho sort of a democracy, and that's great. I still love her, but it's like, whoa, where'd that come from?
Yeah, no kidding.
but but no, being an ML and dating an anarchist, we do but butt heads, but at the same time, it's philosophical differences,
Right.
and doing work on the ground is much more important than um, doing academic work,
Hmm.
and that's where I kind of differ from a lot of MLs, and being all high and mighty and stuff. And
Yeah, how did you get into theory?
oh,
I've largely approached theory from the perspective of um like most most conservatives that I interact with, that I like trying to win over, or you know uh liberals or neoliberals that I'm interacting with and trying to win over, like they're not going to go and read Capital. So I've largely approached theory from somewhat arm's length. I recognize like the
yeah,
utility of it, but I want to be able to reach these people with basic ideas of
mhm,
socialism that resonate with them. So how did you get
yeah.
into theory?
Oh, I was actually radicalized by theory.
Yeah.
I started reading theory in high school, and I read the Communist Manifesto in like junior year or sophomore year,
Hmm.
something like that. And I was like, wow, this is kind of like really eye opening. Like really convinces me on how the world works and how it operates. And
What
then
resonated with you about that?
oh,
Because
the
I just ask because like usually like high schoolers aren't reading like the Communist Manifesto in
oh yeah,
school and like all that
yeah.
stuff.
No, I started reading it as a complete joke, um, because I'm Russian by ethnicity, and like that was just a fun thing.
Yeah,
And I'm in I like I'm one of those ironic people, I guess.
yeah,
Um, what sue me? I don't
that's
know.
fine. I no, I totally I'm vibing with that. Yeah, I get it.
Yeah. Um, no, I read the Communist Manifesto, and I just like thought about how yeah, the difference between uh labor and capital is real. The workers are generally speaking exploited because of how the system works and
Yeah.
by design. And that really came across. I haven't read the Communist Manifesto in uh, embarrassingly a long time. in an embarrassingly long time.
It's all good.
Yeah, but so I couldn't tell you like what grabbed me,
Hmm.
like the quote that grabbed me, but the reading of the manifesto just opened my eyes, and I wanted to read more.
Yeah,
And
I think a lot of people like I wish more people would read like just the basics of like
Mhm.
Marxist theory, just because like at its core it's like, hey, your boss is screwing you over.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
that vibes with a lot of people because it's true.
oh
Um
yeah, absolutely.
and I feel like if we could reframe it in like the popular narrative as like, hey, your boss is screwing you over. Wouldn't it be great if we lived in a society where your boss couldn't screw you over?
Yeah, yeah.
I think that would be beneficial.
Hmm. No, I got, and to follow through with that, I got into Leninism because of his theory of leadership versus the anarcho sort of view of we should all like rise up together and have this great sort of um, well, what I've seen as some great sort of uh, upheaval of society on a sort of mass scale without a general amount of leadership. I keep saying leadership, but at the end of the day, I think that's really what it comes down to
Hmm.
is is in philosophy in the sense that you have a vanguard party, which is simply a leadership, um, leading the working class, the proletariat, whatever we want to say, if we're using big words or whatever.
Right.
But um, like I find that more convincing than the anarchists saying we well we just gotta like get class consciousness and that'll solve everything.
Right.
Um,
Oh, meaty joker, pronouns she her. I think I just cut out. My
no, you're good.
my pronouns are she her. It's okay. I appreciate you asking though. Thank you.
Yeah, it's always good to ask that. I'm he him, but
Okay. Sorry, I made the assumption I probably shouldn't have.
no, it's okay. It's okay. I'm a generic leftist. I mean, I may be Jewish, but
I
that's
know.
the only thing.
I hate that I know exactly what that means.
Yep, yep. No, I yeah, like I may be Jewish, but that's all I have going for me.
Well, you're also Russian.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I don't know how much that really means, but
I don't know. In Trump's America, it means a lot.
yeah, true, true. Because apparently, I own Trump, and Trump is totally a commie.
Yeah.
Because
Wait,
that makes sense.
why haven't you been using your leverage over Trump to transform America?
I know. Well,
Missed
I think.
opportunity.
Yep, yep. It really has been. Um, not to get off on a tangent. I've been seeing all these tweets from right wingers, like saying every Democratic stronghold, like Detroit, like Chicago, and so on and so forth, are
Mhm.
just run by communists. And I've always been like, God, I wish that were true. Like,
Literally everything that the Republican Party puts out about Democrats makes them sound so much cooler than they actually
absolutely,
are. All
absolutely.
of it. Like I was watching Donald Trump on Rush Limbaugh like a couple weeks ago, and as you do,
Yeah,
and
right.
Rush Limbaugh's talking about like Democrats have the ability to remove any Republican senator, ruin any of them at on command. I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
I I wish that were true. We could get rid of so many bad actors in our government.
Mm-hmm.
Um. Oh, apparently George is at a 6-6-5 split now. That's pretty. That's pretty cool.
Wow,
It's getting really down to
wow.
the wire.
Yeah, absolutely. I have a friend that's like actually crunching the numbers on her own,
Yeah.
like right now. Um, I tried to go to sleep earlier, so I stopped like talking to her. But she had made all these spreadsheets like on her own,
Oh
and
wow.
she's like, yeah, George is looking like it's pretty close.
Are
I'm
you
like, that doesn't tell me anything.
so are you college student? Are you
I am a college student,
okay.
yes.
Um
I'm.
sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was just going to ask like What are you going into? Are you going into like political science? Are you going into something else?
I'm a history major with
Hell
political
yeah.
science minor and possibly a philosophy minor because I'm two classes away from getting that.
That's how you do it.
Yeah,
I minored in medieval history, so I
nice,
feel you.
nice. No, well, I should say I study Latin American politics and history.
Oh,
Um,
that's super cool. I
I
Yeah.
specifically I do research on the current Colombian peace process. I always like to throw that out there
Mhm.
because it makes me sound cool, and it's like one of the few things I actually like know in depth about.
Yeah, well, I mean, feel free to educate us. I'm very interested.
Oh, I will talk all night. I don't know if you want that.
Well, can you give us like an overview, like a 101 Colombian peace process?
Okay, so short of it is there have been a lot of peace processes that have been attempted,
Hmm.
specifically with whatever administration is in office and the FARC, which is the predominant Marxist guerrilla group in Colombia.
Hmm.
Um, the Armed Revolutionary Forces of Colombia is FARC, and the translation is FARC in Spanish. Um, and right now, it seems that that has so far, well, in the beginning, it was successful because the FARC did demobilize, and with support of the UN, with monitors from the UN, Norway, um, Cuba, of course,
Hmm.
and all a bunch of actors in the region, um, that has been uh, really a great accomplishment in that. But since that, the 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 breakdown of it has really been a travesty, because a lot of well, I should give background. When the FARC demobilized, they actually gave up territory.
Hmm.
They did administer territory that the government could not get to, which is like
It's
insane if
yeah,
from a political standpoint, because you have basically a state within the state, operating in opposition to a lot of uh, hostile forces, let's say.
right.
Um,
How did they manage that?
oh,
That seems like something that would be incredibly hard to do. Like you'd have to be self
oh,
sufficient.
yes. Well, obviously, the Colombia is notorious for having cocaine and
Hmm.
all these drug cartels. Um, and I always make the distinction that the FARC is not a drug cartel as they've been portrayed.
Okay.
But they have dealt with drug cartels, in the sense that they monitor, they mediate with the farmers and farmers unions,
Hmm.
and between the drug cartels. So they're the ones that are like overviewing and making sure the people within their territory aren't being screwed over, because obviously, if they don't have friends in these territories, then they won't be in those territories long.
Right.
Um, so like monitoring and getting a cut out of like the cartels, sort of uh, uh, like protection, I guess.
Yeah.
That does fund resources. The other big thing is kidnapping,
Right.
which
Not
which
so
the
great.
FARC is not so great. The FARC is notorious for kidnappings. It's how they finance their original sort of escapades in the
Hmm.
'60s. Um, but to bring it back to modern times, um, they administered territory because of like relations with locals, with relations with um, sort of uh, these territories that the government just didn't have control over.
Right.
Um, so they did administer territory, and obviously, during the Civil War, this territory went back forth and so on and so forth. But the point I'm trying to make is that when the FARC demobilized, the plan in the peace process would be that the military would go into these areas, figure out what needed to be done, and put it under state control.
Hmm.
Well, that didn't happen. Uh,
Okay.
so, like not at all. Um, which meant there was a power vacuum, a big power vacuum. Um, so now you have right-wing paramilitaries coming in and assassinating people that did cooperate with the FARC,
Hmm.
people that may not have cooperated with the FARC but are simply community leaders have been assassinated in droves. I think the last count was that there have been 1,000 people that have been like local leaders that have been killed because of the power, like from far right paramilitaries, like since the peace process.
Wow.
Um, yeah, it's horrifying to to see what's happening down there. Um, and that's mostly why the peace process is falling apart because a lot of the FARC members that demobilized are also being assassinated. Um, and when you have like little to no protection from the state, especially when you're trying to integrate into society again, um, why would you like stick around and have your neck out
Right.
there when you can go back into the jungle and continue the fight?
Hmm.
Because these people are ideologically left, um, and there are a lot of dissidents in several corners of the jungle, per se, which is what I'm essentially studying. Is what are the dissidents to the peace process?
Okay.
Um, like it's like niches within niches within niches. That's how academics works.
Okay.
Um,
Like how many of these I guess dissidents are there? Like dissident
ooh,
groups.
I could not tell you because I haven't seen the new count.
Okay.
Um, hell, the last I saw, actually, I shouldn't. I couldn't give you an exact number
Hmm.
of the groups. All I know is that these groups have splintered into several different organizations, um, that are vying for power in areas that were once controlled by the FARC outright, but now are being contested by either drug cartels or the right-wing paramilitaries.
Okay.
Um, hence the power vacuum.
Right.
Um, and of course, the state is still trying to like reassert control, but the power vacuum is there. There's no like taking it back.
Right.
Um,
Huh.
yeah,
What
it's there's
what do the
sure.
ideologies of these splinter groups seem to be?
Oh, the FARC generally was a Marxist-Leninist
Right.
um with practicality asserted with it. There's also the ELN, which is a different Marxist organization.
Hmm.
They're more hardcore ideologically. Um, scary group. Like they have been the ones that are in the cities, the ELN, as well
Okay.
as the leadership being in the jungle and all that, hiding from the state and all that. But they're they're the ones that have been like shooting up clubs and that sort of thing.
Gotcha.
Um, but as opposed to the FARC, which is much more a practical organization, which is on the ground in communities. Well, many people call it extortion, but like protecting communities. Um, uh, but the sort of the ideology of the splinter groups would still be
Would still be
Marx.
Marxist-Leninist?
Yes, but it's also the point of a lot of these groups are saying that um, we are continuing the struggle that the true FARC has has been fighting for. That's
Okay.
the message. Whether or not that's what the leaders of those organizations believe,
Hmm.
I don't know. I couldn't tell you because I haven't read those the like those like signatures and like documents and all that. Um, the biggest thing in terms of coming out of Colombia, the political uh, president of the FARC political party, which is it is now a political party. It does have seats in Congress. Um, Uh, wait, what?
Yeah.
Oh, I just read something in chat.
Oh, yeah. No, don't worry about it. William of
All right.
Orange is our resident conservative.
Oh, okay.
I think he took issue with the calling extortion protection and like squaring that with like the communism. Um,
Okay, okay.
yeah, like I can see how like that would be in like a non how do I even phrase this, like in a from an outside of the context that
hmm
does sound very
Oh, absolutely.
mafia like.
Oh, yeah, that's exactly what it
Yeah.
is. It I think because at the end of the day, the FARC is a terrorist organization.
Yeah.
They've perpetuated bombings
Hmm.
in cities.
Yeah.
There's no getting around that they're violent and a terrorist organization. Um, whatever sympathies someone would have with them has to recognize that they're actively violent and killing civilians.
Right.
Um, even I know that, and because I frankly I study it. But oh
Good reason to know it.
yeah, I would hope so.
Yeah.
Um, no, but the leader of the FARC, um, or at least one of them, came out with a book detailing his experience with the peace process and the history of the FARC and all that sort of his internal sort of battles, which it's entirely in Spanish,
Hmm.
and it would be amazing to read if I could read Spanish.
Oh no.
I know it's the worst part.
um
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, I know, right?
Yeah,
I
it's
I know what thoughts are going through your head because you study Latin America, but you don't speak Spanish.
yeah, what
Uh, I
how
know.
did that step get missed?
Oh, I do not learn languages.
Oh, okay. um
No, it's one of those things where it's I just can't
it
like do
bounces
it.
off.
It just doesn't stick. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean,
I
i
should
i
absolutely learn Spanish. It would be like immensely helpful.
I bet.
Um, plus I want to learn it. Like I just think it would be an important tool and all that. But yeah, as of current, I do not speak or read Spanish.
Yeah. I also raging equalizer. I believe that my esteemed guest here, Comrade Manners, is is not attempting to whitewash it. He merely has an academic perspective on it because he has studied it for a while. Um, oh, Universal Discourse, welcome. We're learning about Latin America and the FARC. Um, so like, hello.
I'm here. I'm here.
Oh, okay. Um, do like, I guess what drew you to this field of study? It seems very specific.
Oh, I've generally always like been fascinated with Latin American socialism
Mm-hmm.
in its variety of forms. Um, this kind of started up with a class I took in college
Mm-hmm.
when I was a freshman with a wonderful professor, uh, Professor Peter Trumbore. Shout out.
Hell
Um,
yeah.
he's he's a genius. He studies the Irish, the Irish Republican Army,
Okay.
and it's a peace process. And we were just talking one day, and I was talking about what I learned about Latin America because I'm always interested in what's going on there, and uh, he was like, "Well, you seem really interested. Do you want to like work on something?" I was like, "Hell yeah!" And then it just spiraled from there.
That's awesome.
No, I don't know how it happened, but I'm extremely grateful to him personally and to like getting into this sort of study.
um, so like, what I guess one of the questions and it's probably inevitable, but like, what do you hope to like figure out about these groups?
Oh, well, the hope is to better understand. peace processes,
Mm-hmm.
to what makes them work, what makes them fail, and try and get some actual academic work into the field and say uh, how peace processes work and what makes them tick. What
Mm-hmm.
how do they function, as well as how are they successful?
Okay. So, like, do you see yourself becoming like an academic, or do you see yourself like using this in the world as like a diplomat? Like, what?
The
Or is
the
that
plan
on the horizon too far to see?
that's uh well, the current dilemma I have is whether I want to go for a PhD and study Latin America in academics,
Mm-hmm.
like officially, or if I'm just gonna go into law school, which has been the plan since I don't even know when.
Okay.
Um, so I'm having a dilemma there, um, because I don't think it's easy to get into international law.
True. True.
Yeah, so
How do
that'd
you
be
hope to like use because like I've noticed you're big on praxis and stuff like how do
yeah.
you hope to use these skills like you're clearly developing a very particular set of skills how do you want to use them, you know?
Well, first I want to get like what I've worked on into a academic journal,
Hmm.
because that'd be amazing.
Yeah.
After that, I want to like go into like on the ground communities and see um what works and how to like apply what I've learned in what has been done in Colombia,
Hmm.
uh in terms of like on the ground work, and how like I said, what works and what doesn't.
Right.
um and at least trying to apply that to some form of community organizing.
I see. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Well, that's so cool. I really appreciate you giving me your time tonight.
Well, thank you. Thank you
Yeah,
for having me.
no problem. This has been a lovely conversation that I enjoyed very
Yeah.
much. Do you have anything you want to like shout out?
Um, Follow me on Twitter.
And where can people follow you on Twitter?
It is comrade underscore manners with a Z at the end, same
Okay.
as my Twitch. Um, Actually, let me check that. It might not have a. I forget all the time. Um, yeah, it's comrade underscore manners. Oh, it is with an S. Okay.
Manners. Okay.
Yes. And join your local DSA.
Okay. Yeah, join the DSA. And if you're a gun person, join the Socialist
SRA.
Rifle. Yeah, the SRA.
Hell yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Well,
all right.
I will let you get back to your stream.
For sure. Thank you very much.
Unless you're signing off. I don't know. But I'll definitely be back and in the chat. So
That would
yeah,
be
thank you.
absolutely lovely. I enjoy having smart people around, you know? And maybe we'll have you on again sometime.
I hope so.
All right. You have a good
All right.
night, okay? Get some
You
good
too.
sleep.
I will try.
All right. Goodbye. That was absolutely lovely. I enjoyed the dickens out of that conversation. I learned a lot about things that would not have been exposed to, and I feel like we all became better friends. Maybe. I don't know. Maybe. uh, I love you all very much. I've been streaming now for 7.5 hours. Um, I think I am going to be done. I am quite tired. Um, yeah, do go to sleep, Comrade Manners. And before you go to bed, drink some water, okay? And for the rest of you, I love you very much. And we will be streaming again tomorrow night. Um, be be like I'm the baddest woan on the planet. Is that how you wanted me to be like? What? Come at me. Come at me. Um and with that, I'm gonna hop off. I'm very tired, and over the past month we've grown this channel by about 300 or 400%. I'm super excited, guys. Just in just in the course of this stream, we're almost at 400 followers. What this tells me is that there is a huge thirst for socialism in the United States and abroad. I think that this is fantastic and something that we should continue to work together to build, okay?